In October, Canada will mark the 7th anniversary of cannabis legalization. And while the rollout of legalization was clunky at times, it was generally considered successful. But despite that success, some voices in the industry are calling on the government to make changes. And one of those voices spoke with our contributor, David Clement.
So we're approaching nearly 7 years since cannabis was legalized, and we're going to take a look at what advocates are saying needs to change. I was joined by Jody Gies-Ramsey, a pioneer in the fight for legalization, on what the government needs to do, specifically on cannabis taxation.
Taxation on cannabis is excessive and unnecessary. It stifles the opportunities for small and medium businesses. It causes problems for consumers who then have to pay a higher price for the products they desire. And it's actually forcing a lot of our finest gardeners and growers in Canada to sell their product overseas to get around the excessive taxation that's hampering their growth here at home. There's a lot of talk right now about supporting Canadian producers and growers and businesses, but when it comes to cannabis, a lot of the businesses are struggling just to keep the lights on and keep their employees on payroll. Our government needs to do a lot more to address the fact that the taxes imposed on cannabis were done based on prohibition era pricing. Right now, we need change, we need reduced taxes. The government is also in the position of being the middleman, so they buy all the product from the growers and then sell it to the retail stores. Here in British Columbia, we do have a direct delivery program where the growers can sell directly to the retailers, but the government still puts a 15% tax on those agreements between businesses. When the government continues to tax cannabis at such a high rate, it continues to support the unlicensed illicit industry. And many of the big businesses are looking at shutting down completely and changing their business model away from cannabis. Our country should be proud of our legalization legacy. We should be celebrating the growers who jumped through all the hoops and did everything necessary to become legal and licensed. But there's still a stigma against these businesses. There's still some talk about how cannabis is something to be ashamed of or something to not support and promote.
Now, one of the major hurdles in a post-legalization setting is that there are virtually no spaces for consumers to consume cannabis in a commercial setting. When we think of alcohol, Canadians can enjoy their favorite wine, beer, or cocktail at a variety of licensed establishments. But that isn't the case for cannabis, and Jody argues that this needs to be fixed.
At this time, the government of Canada is authorizing the sale and use of cannabis, but they don't allow for places to use it. It is generally provincial and municipal jurisdiction regarding the zoning and the rules around lounges, but we deserve as consumers to have a choice to go somewhere to consume cannabis, either smoking, vaping, drinking, or eating it. We've had some technology advancements with respect to drinks. At first, it was hard to titrate your dose, and now there's nano-emulsification, which means you can feel the effect sooner than you used to be able to. So people are able to self-regulate their use in terms of consuming edibles and drinks, which generally used to have a stronger impact and a delayed onset.
However, one looming issue is the problem of smoke, specifically in the workplace. In speaking with Jody, she doesn't feel that the government's case holds up and that there is room to allow for cannabis lounges where adults can smoke cannabis.
Right now in Canada, the major issue that we're facing with respect to lounges is that governments say they can't allow people to work in an environment where smoke is present. It's generally a WorkSafe BC or a WorkSafe concern for many provinces and regions. My my solution to the lounge issue with respect to smoke is that we have a lot of other businesses and employers and places of work where people engage in risk every day, whether it's working in a kitchen with hot flames and knives, working in a hair salon or nail salon, construction, swimming lessons, you name it. There's some sort of risk inherent in almost every job, but the employee engages in that consensually with the employer. When it comes to cannabis lounges, there's sometimes talk about allowing only drinking and eating cannabis, but the vast majority of consumers do smoke it or vaporize it. There are some underground lounges that have demonstrated what a lounge should look like. It includes air movement, ventilation, employees knowing what they're doing and how to get support if they need it. And there are different models overseas and internationally that we can look to. In Amsterdam, for example, many of the coffee shops would have the employees working in a smoke free zone at the front where they welcome customers in, sell them a coffee or a croissant, and then the consumer goes into an area where it's closed off and they can submit themselves to a space where there is smoke present with no risk to the employees. But again, I believe that many people who want to work in these lounges are very aware that there's cannabis smoke present and would not have any issues with that being the case.
Now, critics of lounges have argued that we've eliminated indoor smoking for cigarettes and that allowing for cannabis to be smoked in commercial settings would be backsliding. But is it comparable?
With respect to smoke, what we saw with restaurants and bars was that employees were working there as waitresses or bartenders. And when people were able to smoke cigarettes, the employee was subjected to smoke. That wasn't part of their job. And that put them at risk of an actually deadly substance. However, when you look at cannabis lounges, it would be very well known to anyone working in them that that's what they're there for. They probably consume themselves. And we can find workarounds to allow the employees, the customers, and the business owners to all consensually engage in attending these sort of spaces.